Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Leeson. Here are today's top stories. Burma's ambassador to the UK was locked out his embassy by the representatives of Burma's military. Northern Ireland's Unionist and Republican leaders appeal for calm after nightly outbreaks of street violence in Belfast. And Health Secretary Matt Hancock says the UK has enough Pfizer and Moderna vaccines for under 30s. Burma's ambassador to the UK urged the British government not to recognise the junta's envoy and to send them back after he was locked out of the embassy by the representatives of the military. NTD's Neil Woodrow has more.
I'm outside the Burmese embassy in London, where around 50 protesters have been calling for democracy and for the military attaché inside to get out. On Wednesday, Khodso Min, Burma, also known as Myanmar's ambassador to the UK, was locked out of his embassy by military attaché and had to spend the night in his car. The ambassador said through a spokesman that after the military coup in February, he was recalled by the military regime. Since then, he has stopped following Burma's foreign ministry's instructions.
There was a coup in Myanmar in February, now in a similar situation in central London.
UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab condemned the bullying actions of the military regime and paid tribute to the ambassador's courage. The ambassador, through his spokesman, is standing defiant.
Yes, we have full faith in the UK government not to recognise the military council of Myanmar and not to follow the military council request to install Dr. Chewin as the Chindy affair, but to stand with the democratically elected government of Myanmar and its people.
In a letter to the British Foreign Ministry from the Myanmar embassy seen by Reuters, those in control of the embassy said that Deputy Ambassador Chit Win had taken over as charge d'affaires as of Wednesday. The BBC reports that the UK has accepted the changes. Outside the embassy, protesters are calling for the UK government to help them and chanting slogans, "Stop killing our people right now, China gains, Burma pays." One protester from Burma says it's unacceptable that their country's embassy is seized by the military.
We are quite afraid that if this military attaché successfully seizes the Burmese embassy in UK, the similar situation gonna happen in different countries because, it is like a coup in a central London, yeah.
Thant tells NTD most Burmese believe China secretly supports the junta and provides IT technicians and workforce to the military. After the military coup earlier this year, Khodso Min called for Burma's ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi to be released. Since the military coup, over 600 anti-coup demonstrators have been killed, according to some Burma media. The protesters say they hope the situation can be turned around for the future of all Burmese. Neil Woodrow, NTD News, London.
In a show of unity, Northern Ireland's power-sharing executive appealed for calm on Thursday, as the country saw more nightly outbreaks of street violence.
In Belfast, groups on Wednesday night threw fireworks, bricks and petrol bombs at each other from either side of one of the city's so-called peace walls. Those walls have divided the two communities in parts of the city since the Troubles. A bus was also set on fire and police attacked. More than 50 police have been injured in Northern Ireland during the violence that began over Easter. The region's devolved government held an emergency meeting on Thursday. In a statement they said, "We are gravely concerned by the scenes we have all witnessed on our streets."
So political problems require political solutions, never street violence. Northern Ireland is faced with a number of deep and significant political challenges in the time ahead, and collectively we must work through those challenges.
It's not right, it's dangerous, it's unacceptable, and it is a miracle that as we stand here today that no one has been killed.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson wrote on Twitter, "The way to resolve differences is through dialogue, not violence or criminality." The violence comes amid growing frustration among many pro-British unionists at new trade barriers between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom. The police service of Northern Ireland has said some of the violence was influenced by criminal elements who helped to orchestrate the attacks.
Health Secretary Matt Hancock says the UK has enough Pfizer and Moderna vaccines for under 30s after health regulators recommended that this age group should not get the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Health Secretary Matt Hancock says people don't need to worry about the supplies of the other two vaccines approved by the UK.
We have enough, more than enough, Pfizer and Moderna vaccine to cover all of the remaining 8.5 million people aged between 18 and 29 if necessary.
But he says all three vaccines available in the UK are safe. He says 1.6 million people in this age group have already had their first jab, and that they should get their second jab of the same vaccine as their first. Speaking on Thursday, Hancock said the UK is on track to vaccinate all adults by the end of July.
The vaccine programme is proceeding well. The speed of the vaccine programme is not affected by the decisions yesterday.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson also affirmed the AstraZeneca vaccines are safe and have saved many thousands of lives. He's calling people to come forward to get their jabs.
So we'll make sure that they get the right jabs, and of course I don't see any reason at this stage at all to think we need to deviate from the roadmap, and we're also very secure about our supply.
A study finds the UK's vaccination programme may be breaking the link between cases and deaths. Scientists tracking the epidemic say the infections fell by roughly 2/3 since February, before beginning to level off. The research is based on swabs taken from a sample of 140,000 people in March. Of them, the positive rate for the virus was 1 in 500. But among people over 65, the rate was halved at 1 in 1,000, suggesting the impact of the vaccination programme. The Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation gave new advice on Wednesday not to give the AstraZeneca vaccine to under 30s where possible. But the head of the medicine regulator said the benefits of the vaccine still outweigh the risks for the vast majority.
Our review has reinforced that the risk of this rare suspected side effect remains extremely small.
The UK has reported 79 cases of blood clots, from which 19 people have died. That's from over 20 million doses of the vaccine being given out.
Police have identified the body of Richard Okorogai from West London. Police confirmed that the body found in a lake in Essex on Monday was a missing 19-year-old student. The cause of death is pending whilst further investigations are carried out. On this stage, the police haven't found evidence of physical trauma or assault. Detective Superintendent Danny Gosling said, "My deepest sympathies go out to Richard's family at this incredibly difficult time." The 19-year-old had not been seen since he left his family home in the Ladbroke Grove area of West London on the evening of March the 22nd. And in other news, as the government reviews the idea of a pass that would prove your COVID-19 status, there's concerns fraudsters may advertise fake ones. Here's NTD's Jane Worrell with more.
With cyber fraud on the rise since pandemic restrictions, concerns that fraudsters may start forging vaccine certificates. The government hasn't confirmed whether a domestic passport scheme will be launched in the UK, but it's piloting the idea at some large events.
You've got to be very careful in how you handle this and don't start a system that's discriminatory. But obviously we're looking at it.
The Prime Minister said that domestic vaccine passports won't be introduced on April the 12th or May the 17th. Those are the next reopening dates. But he certainly hasn't ruled it out. Michael Gove is currently reviewing the idea. Meanwhile, the banking trade body says that scammers are likely to adapt their ways and may start targeting people by advertising fake COVID certificates. The passes could prove a challenge to authenticate.
There are essentially 3 points at which it can go wrong. It might not be the person who's been tested, it might not be the person who owns the certificate, and the certificate in itself might be entirely fake.
But he says proving the authenticity of certificates could come in a way that compromises other freedoms.
I think at the very deepest level, to get this working perfectly, you need a complete biometric-based identity system working. That's an enormous cost to society. It means that you would introduce, you would know who is whom from facial recognition or something like that at any point in any place. Slightly more authoritarian governments would be inclined to abuse these systems once they're in place.
Some have suggested younger people wanting to go to large events may be a target for scammers. Fraud experts have cautioned people if vaccine certificates are introduced to get them from an official source. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
A high-profile pro-democracy activist from Hong Kong said he has been granted political asylum in the UK. Former Hong Kong lawmaker Nathan Law fled the city and arrived in London last July. This is after the Chinese regime imposed a draconian national security law on the former British colony. Law wrote on Twitter that he hopes his own case could help free other Hong Kong protesters. Observers say the move is certain to ratchet up tensions between London and Beijing. And in further news, Britain has pledged £43 million to help people arriving from Hong Kong to find jobs, houses and schools. It's under an initiative allowing millions to resettle after China's imposition of new security laws in the region.
Britain is pledging support for people from Hong Kong looking to resettle in the UK. It's part of a wider effort to let millions of Hong Kongers into Britain after China imposed new security laws in its former colony. The government said on Thursday the money will mostly go to programs for English language support and housing, and efforts to help those from Hong Kong find jobs. Since January, thousands of Hong Kong residents have been able to apply for special 5-year visas and eventually become UK citizens. With the new offer, there are plans to launch a dozen welcome hubs around the UK to help with registering for healthcare, schools and provide advice for setting up businesses. The government says it's part of fulfilling a historic and moral commitment to the people of Hong Kong, and that China's security laws are being used to silence dissent. Ministers say the visa program is a way of honouring their side of the deal to hand Hong Kong back to Beijing in 1997. China has reacted angrily to the UK's efforts and have said that the West's views are clouded by misinformation and imperialism. So far, 27,000 people applied for the visa scheme through March, and it's expected 300,000 people will apply over the next 5 years.
The Chief Constable of Avon and Somerset is to step down after his force was criticised over its handling of protests. Andy Marsh says he will not seek to extend his contract when it expires in early July. He became a police officer in 1987 and has led the force since 2016. During Black Lives Matter protests last summer, he was among officers who stood back when the protesters tore down the statue of Edward Colston and threw it into Bristol's harbour. Last month, during so-called Kill the Bill protests, under his watch, a police station in Bristol was besieged. More than 40 police officers were injured and 2 police vans were set on fire. Still to come, a medicines watchdog recommends people with chronic pain try exercise and acupuncture instead of using opioid painkillers. That and more when we return.